Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into the really fascinating world of electric air taxis. We're going to focus specifically on Joby Aviation.
Yeah, our mission today is to look at their latest reports, the Q2 2025 financial and operational stuff, and really pull out the key insights because it's not just about the numbers on a page, right?
Yeah.
It's about understanding the actual progress, the real story behind bringing these futuristic vehicles, into our skies. Okay, so let's unpack this, what's really happening on the ground, and maybe more importantly, in the air, as companies like Joby push forward. Now, for any new aviation tech, certification is always the massive hurdle. It's absolutely crucial before anything commercial can happen. So this is where it gets really interesting. What's the latest on Joby's progress with the FAA? How close are they?
Well, they're making some pretty significant strides, actually, in their FAA-type certification program. They've hit 70% completion on their side of Stage 4. Stage 4 is that big testing and analysis phase.
Oh, okay, 70%.
Yeah. And the FAA, for their part, they're now over 50% complete on their side of Stage 4. Over 50. Wow.
Right, and that's a solid 10-point jump just from the first quarter of 2025. So definite momentum there.
That's 70% on their side, over 50 on the FAA's. That sounds substantial. It suggests they've cleared some major, perhaps unpredictable, testing hurdles already. What's usually the biggest challenge left in that final stretch of Stage 4?
That's a great point. Getting those percentages is huge because stage 4 is, well, it's where everything gets proven. Intense flight testing, tons of data analysis, proving every single safety standard. Hitting those numbers means they've likely significantly de-risked the core design and performance aspects.
Okay.
The remaining hurdles are often about the really fine details, meticulous documentation, final validation. But the big unknowns, probably behind them now, it's like, you're through the toughest part of the climb and the summit's in view.
Right.
So next up, they're preparing for the final assembly of the first conforming aircraft. These are specifically for what's called Type Inspection Authorization, or TIA, flight testing. Joby expects their own pilots to start flying this aircraft later in 2025.
Their own pilots first.
Yes. And then FAA pilots will follow shortly after that to directly evaluate the performance, the safety, everything. The plan is to have 5 aircraft like this for this TIA phase. And FAA test pilots, they're expected to actually start flying them in 2026.
That's really clear progress on the direct path.
Yeah.
But what about sort of the wider picture, the regulatory environment? Are there government things or, international efforts helping this along?
Oh, absolutely. There's definitely a helpful environment shaping up. You've got U.S. government initiatives like the recent executive order on drone dominance. That's expected to, generally accelerate eVTOL development.
Okay.
And Joby's been proactive, too. They participated in an FAA simulation recently, modeling eVTOL flights right within LAX Class B airspace.
LAX, that's busy airspace.
Extremely busy. So modeling their operations there gives the FAA really valuable data for setting standards and ensuring these things can integrate safely. And then looking bigger picture, globally, what's really fascinating is this new 5-nation roadmap from the National Aviation Authority Network, the NWA network.
5 nations.
Yeah, the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. They're working together to streamline how eVTOLs get certified across all these major markets. That's huge for scaling later on.
That makes sense. A unified approach.
Exactly. And interestingly, Joby's early work with the FAA, going way back to 2016, actually helped lay some of the groundwork for this kind of international alignment. So it's like you said, they're not just building a plane, they're actively helping shape the rules for this whole new way of flying.
So the rulebook's taking shape, certification's moving. The next big piece is, well, how do they actually get these aircraft into service? What's the plan for commercialization?
Right, this is where it gets really tangible. They just finished a big flight test campaign in Dubai this summer, June and July. They completed 21 full transition flights there.
Full transition.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part, right?
Yeah.
Vertical to forward flight and back.
Precisely. Going from that vertical lift, like a helicopter, to efficient wing-borne flight, like a plane, and then back for landing. Nailing that is absolutely key for, energy use, speed, just making the whole operation work effectively.
And doing it in Dubai.
Yeah.
What did that prove?
Well, it wasn't just about the flying itself. It was about proving they're ready for the commercial market in real-world conditions. So maintenance, logistics, how the aircraft actually performs, the infrastructure needed. For instance, they flew in temperatures hitting nearly 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Yeah, which gives incredibly important data on how their thermal management systems cope. That's critical for battery life, motor performance, safety, especially in that kind of heat.
Makes sense. You need to know it works everywhere.
Exactly. And that direct engagement with the regulators in Dubai provided real-time feedback for getting operational approvals. That's a crucial step towards their goal of flying the first passengers there in 2026. And the vertiport at Dubai International Airport, DXB, that's on track too, should be completed in Q1 2026, setting the stage.
Okay, Dubai sounds promising, but what about here in the US or Europe? Those big urban markets. Building all the landing spots, the vertiports, that seems like a huge lift on its own.
It is a huge lift, and that's where Joby's recent move is really quite clever, strategically speaking. They've signed a definitive agreement to acquire Blade Air Mobility's passenger business.
Ah, Blade, I know them. They operate helicopters in places like New York. Yeah.
Exactly. And this acquisition isn't just about getting routes, it's about getting immediate market access and infrastructure. Blade already has terminals, lounges. Think about it. This potentially bypasses years of work and massive investment needed to build that infrastructure from scratch. It's a potential shortcut.
That's a significant advantage.
It really is. Blade flew over 50,000 passengers last year, 2024. They have 12 urban terminals, lounges at JFK, Newark, Manhattan. So Joby plugs right into that existing network. The idea is it speeds up commercialization, lowers the upfront costs for infrastructure, and even helps with customer acquisition.
Interesting.
And here's another layer. Joby will also become the preferred VTOL partner for Blade's organ transport business.
Organ transport. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, opens up a whole new high-value area in air medical services. It shows a critical use case beyond just, flying people to the airport.
Right. It demonstrates a different kind of value.
Precisely. And they'll be integrating Joby's own software suite, Elevate OS, that got FAA authorization last year into Blade's operations. That covers pilot apps, operations management, the rider app, all of it.
That Blade deal is a major piece. But beyond passenger service and now medical transport, are they exploring other commercial avenues? Diversifying.
Absolutely diversifying, yes. They've announced a new collaboration with L3Harris Technologies.
L3Harris, the defense contractor.
That's the one. They're working together to develop a gas turbine hybrid variant of Joby's aircraft.
A hybrid? Interesting.
Yeah.
For what purpose?
Specifically for low-altitude defense opportunities. They're planning flight tests this fall, with operational demos during government exercises in 2026. And this fits right in with the Department of Defense's focus. They've requested, I think, $9.4 billion in the FY26 budget just for advancing autonomous and hybrid aircraft.
Okay, so defense is a clear target. What else? International expansion beyond Dubai.
Yes, definitely pushing internationally. There's an agreement with Abdul Latif Jameel to explore distributing Joby aircraft in Saudi Arabia and the region. That could mean a potential sale of up to 200 aircraft.
200 aircraft. That's a huge potential order.
Huge potential value, too, roughly $1 billion. And then in Japan, they've expanded their agreement with ANA Holdings, the airline ANA.
Right.
They're setting up a joint venture to deploy over 100 Joby aircraft there, building a whole new air taxi ecosystem. The plan is a phased rollout, starting in Tokyo in the coming years.
So multiple paths forward.
Exactly. If you step back and look at the big picture, Joby isn't just betting on one thing. They're pursuing direct consumer service via Blade. They're looking at defense, international partnerships in the Middle East, in Asia. It spreads the risk and opens up way more potential revenue down the line.
Right. That makes sense. So certification's progressing, the commercial deals are stacking up.
Yeah.
But you still need to build these things. In volume, that's the next monster challenge, right?
How's Joby scaling up manufacturing?
That's the critical next step, scaling production. They've just completed a major expansion of their facility in Marina, California. It's now 435,000 square feet total. That expansion basically lets them double production capacity at that site to 24 aircraft per year.
Okay, 24 a year from Marina.
Right. And that Marina site will also be the hub for their initial FAA production certification, testing, and pilot training. So it's foundational. But then they also have the newly renovated facility in Dayton, Ohio, coming online.
Not Dayton. Aviation heritage there. Exactly. That Dayton facility is being set up for component manufacturing and testing initially, but the long-term plan is for it to be capable of producing up to 500 aircraft per year.
500?
Yeah.
That's a huge jump.
It is, and that really brings up the key question, doesn't it? How does a company actually make that leap from prototypes and low-rate production to genuinely scaled manufacturing for something this complex and, frankly, safety critical?
Yeah, that's the multi-billion-dollar question.
And a huge part of Joby's answer seems to be their deep partnership with Toyota.
Toyota, right? The car manufacturer. How do they fit in?
Well, it's not just about investment, though. Toyota is a major investor. It's about leveraging Toyota's legendary manufacturing expertise, their Toyota production system. Think lean manufacturing, quality control at every step, supply chain mastery. Applying that kind of rigor is absolutely essential when you're trying to scale up something like an EVTOL safely and efficiently.
So using Toyota's playbook.
Pretty much. And speaking of investment, Joby just closed on that first $250 million part of the previously announced $500 million strategic investment from Toyota. So that partnership is very active, very real.
Okay, that partnership sounds crucial for scaling. But all this development, the testing, building factories, the blade acquisition potentially, it all costs a lot of money. What's the financial situation look like right now?
Right, you need fuel for the rocket. Joby ended the second quarter of 2025 in a pretty strong position cash-wise. They had $991 million in cash and short-term investments on hand.
Almost $1 billion. That's a solid cushion.
It is. Now, looking at the P&L, the net loss for the quarter was $324.7 million.
Okay, a loss, which is expected at this stage, I suppose.
Exactly. And that loss was higher than both the same quarter last year and the previous quarter this year. But a key thing to understand is why. A lot of that increase was driven by non-cash items, things like the revaluation of warrants and earnout shares.
The accounting stuff that doesn't actually spend cash.
Precisely. Changes in the value of future stock obligations, basically. Very common for companies at this stage. If you look at their adjusted EBITDA loss, which pulls out some of those non-cash items and others, that was $131.6 million for the quarter.
Okay, $131.6 million adjusted EBITDA loss. That's probably a better reflection of the operational burn rate.
It gives a clearer picture of the operational cash use, yes. And looking ahead, the company estimates their total cash use for the full year 2025 will be somewhere between $500 and $540 million.
$500 million, roughly.
Roughly. And that's excluding any potential cash impact from the blade acquisition, since that deal has its own specifics. But yeah, for a company that's basically building a new industry from scratch, pushing through certifications, setting up manufacturing, these kinds of numbers reflect that intense investment needed to get to the starting line, really.
So bringing it all together, what does this really mean for you, our listener? Well, it seems pretty clear Joby is making, tangible progress on certification. That's huge. They've got this really layered approach to commercialization now, the blade acquisition for immediate access, defense angles, global partnerships.
Multi-pronged.
Yeah, and they're seriously scaling up manufacturing with that Toyota partnership underpinning it, all backed by still a very significant amount of cash. Which leads to maybe a final thought to chew on. When you consider how Joby is trying to weave itself into existing city transport networks with Blade and also tapping into defense, how do you see this eVTOL adoption actually playing out first? Will it be like a slow trickle of personalized flights becoming more common? Or could these specialized uses, maybe medical transport like the organ flights or defense applications, could they be the things that really pave the way, maybe even help fund the early stages before it becomes widespread for everyday civilian travel? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.